Ladies and gentlemen, we are now in the beginning of the new air age, and democracies definitely are in severe danger. If you look around in the world, autocrats seem to be on the rise and democratic systems seem to be in decline. In the first part of this video, of this analysis, I've already introduced a couple of very revealing cycle theories, where we see, according to cycles in history, according to cycles of astrology, how political systems change over time, and that we are now in this crucial phase where democracies normally are just going into dust. Now, in this video, I would like to focus on the future of democracies. I would like to introduce some solutions how we can renovate democracies for the 21st century, how we can renovate democracy for the challenges of the air age. So in the first part, I'm going to make a problem analysis. I would like to introduce the 8 major problems of modern democracies, and then in the second part I'm going to introduce some solutions. So my video necessarily has a very Eurocentristic perspective, so please, like in the former video, write down your comments, write down your thoughts. It's so important now in this really dangerous period of global separation that we start to reunite again and that we work on solutions together. Yeah, if we look at the current state of democracies, then we see a couple of really grave problems that we have to solve in order to rescue the participation of all of us in our political decision-making processes. Yeah, and the first big problem of modern democracies is slow decision-making and big compromises. So decision-making in democracies has become very, very slow and inefficient. This leads to the situation that the big issues, the big problems, they are not solved at all anymore because nobody wants to burn his fingers. And so these big problems, they just lay on the table. Nobody is solving them, so long until the problems, let's say, solve or unsolve themselves in the meaning of crisis and of catastrophe. So we see democracies, they work quite well if the situations are stable, if the will of the people, if the prosperity is guaranteed. But as soon as we get into times of big crisis, into times of big changes, then we come into a narcotization of decisions, and nothing is working properly anymore. And we also have so many compromises in these democratic decision-making processes that this takes extremely long. In the end, nobody is really satisfied with the outcome. In the end, the decisions become very incoherent. Problems are only solved halfly because in the end, to get a decision, I agree here in this point with you, and then you agree in the other point with me. So something very, very strange and winded and unlogical comes out in the end. If you look at our laws, if we look at regulations, then nobody, after all these decades of making more and more compromises, nobody gets the point in there anymore, because it's just a mixture, a fracture of so many different opinions and demands and requests. Then the next point is state as self-preserving self-purpose. Originally, states have been created to serve the people, to coordinate everything that is, let's say, the welfare of us all. But then, after a while, it gets its own dynamics. It becomes, let's say, a purpose in itself. And if you leave such a power system enough time to grow, then it just grows immensely and gets bigger and bigger. And every government, every minister creates new departments, hires new people, creates new topics, what is important for them, but nobody closes such departments if they are not needed anymore. Yeah, because the people who work they want to keep their privileges. For example, an equal opportunities officer from the early 1980s, nowadays he would be just unemployed within seconds, because all these crucial problems that they had on his checklist in the early 80s, they are solved nowadays. But what is he doing now? Is he saying, oh, mission completed, I've solved everything, I'm not needed anymore? No, he searches himself new problems, new tasks, new topics to prolong his work, to prolong that he is needed. And that's the reason why states, if there are not wars or other crises in between, where states, like a natural law, grow and grow and grow, get bigger, bigger and bigger in the end. So what is done in the USA with the Dodge Department of Governmental Efficiency, is really historically a huge exception and a very interesting experiment, because normally public institutions, power systems, they have a tendency of cementation. So the next problem is cementation of power systems. So in monarchy, it's your birth that decides if you are, let's say, on the steering wheel of power, or if you are not. In democracies that had times over decades to grow, it's not your birth the criteria, but in the end it's whom you know, if you belong to any of those power cliques. You have the same privilege, you have the same sinecures, like in the monarchies. It's just other people who have them, and of course they and their cronies, they try to secure all their privileges in this power system. The next problem of democracy is parties as mediocrity machines. Yeah, so, and this guarantees that only quite colorless, mediocre politicians get into power normally. Yeah, there are exceptions, but normally parties, they want to reproduce their ideologies. So extraordinary independent heads and thinkers, they have it difficult in such a party democracy, because they are sifted out before they get into power. You are not wanted here, or they get streamlined by being for years into these party machines. Yeah, so this is a big problem, because in the end only these Teflon politicians, they survive this process within the mediocrity machines of the parties. And of course this also narrows very much plurality in our democracies. The next huge problem of democracies is the representation problem. In the former Earth Age, the situation was quite clear. If you are a worker, you have certain problems and demands and wishes. You have a specific situation that is comparable, and so you vote for the socialist parties. If you are instead a bourgeois, if you are an entrepreneur, maybe also if you are a farmer, you also have a specific demands and needs, and then you vote for the conservatives. And yeah, in the end, they represent your demands, your wishes, your problems very well. But nowadays, in the air age, everything gets very individualistic. Everything gets very multi-dimensional. And so these party systems, these party ideologies, they don't work anymore, because they are much too rough and crude to represent anybody. For example, if you are for protection of environment, but you are against war, whom should you vote from the established parties, at least in Europe? If you are for a strong social state, but you are against migration, whom should you vote? That's the reason why so many people don't feel represented by the established parties anymore, and why they don't feel represented by democracy anymore. Yeah, so this party democracy is really a relic of the old Earth Age, where everything was hierarchically structured and ordered, and it has become an anachronism in the new Air Age. The solution could be a change, a shift from party democracy to a topic democracy, to an issue democracy, where you can really directly vote specifically for specific issues, for specific topics. Yeah, that would be, let's say, a modern version of democracy in the Air Age. Next problem of modern democracies, it's the rulership of laymen, a layman rulership, or even you could say a dilettantes rulership. Because, I mean, if I have a company and I want to hire a head of finance, then of course I'm searching for the very best. I'm searching for somebody who has studied finance, who knows everything about bookkeeping and about controlling, who has many, many years or even decades job experience, who has very, very good references for being a good head of finance. But what are we doing on the heads of our states? Most ministers and even most heads of departments in the public administration, they are lawyers or they studied political sciences, but they are not really experts in the fields that they are governing. So we have really an immense loss of problem-solving competencies. And this in the age of enormously increasing complexity. If you look at topics like migration, international economy, digitalization, artificial intelligence, and we only have lawyers or people who studied sociology or political sciences as head of all these important departments. You see, all these problems that I've named so far, I think they can be solved by renovating democracy. The last problem, I'm not sure how we can solve this, but it's kind of the core problem of democracies. I call it presence instead of future. In democracies, normally we have periods of 4 or 5 years from election to election. So a new government, in the first, let's say, 6 months, they have to get into their work. In the last 6 months, they are already in their election campaign for the next voting. So in the end, we have more or less 3 years where these governments have their time horizons. So they have really an ultra short-term perspective. Yeah, this is structurally forced that we have this ultra short-term perspective in modern democracies. And this is also the reasons why the big problems that only get on long term, why they are not solved, why they are not touched. Nobody wants to burn his fingers, for example, on the pension systems or on the health systems. Yeah, so all these, they just get prolonged and prolonged. The problems get bigger and bigger and bigger. But everybody says, no, in these 3 years, I want to show successes. I need fast successes. I need something to show to people immediately so that they vote me again, that they elect me again. But I cannot burn my fingers on these difficult long-term problems. And this is really the profound contradiction to autocratic or let's say to monarchic systems of royalty, because the king, the monarch, he doesn't think in 3-year terms. He thinks over decades, even over centuries. Yeah, it's not just important what is now or in the next year for the monarch. For him, it's important, how maybe next generations will look onto his work. What people in 50 or 100 years will think about him, and how their children and grandchildren, who will be then in 100 years or in 200 years, the new monarchs. Also their will is important for him. So In democracies, by force, we have an ultra short-term perspective, and in monarchies, we have by force an ultra long-term perspective. And also this is a very grave problem of democracies that we have to solve, because even nowadays, many people are thinking, oh, a good king is much, much better than a bad democracy. So we need a strong man, we need somebody who decides with all his wisdom and with his strengths and with his power for us. But what they don't see is that in the end, a bad democracy always is a bit better, at least, than a bad monarchy, than a depraved king. So all these problems lead to the situation that we have some symptoms of degeneration in our modern democracies. The first one is fraying ideologies. So in Earth Age, ideologies of the socialists, of the conservatives, of the right wings, of the liberals, they have been very consistent among itself. But now in the Air Age, we have so many internal contradictions that now pop up and really destroy these old ideologies. For example, if you have been more left-winged in the past, you said, okay, being for the environment and being for social topics, this goes hand in hand. But nowadays, I mean, if we are going to protect our environment, if we are going to transfer into a sustainable economy, then this leads to extremely high costs. And this leads to the fact that poorer people, they cannot afford many things anymore. So we have a real contradiction. We have a real conflict between the environmental tasks and the social tasks. Or if you have been for an open, pluralistic society, then it was clear in the past that you are also for migration, you are also for other cultures. But now many, many people come from other cultures and they have a completely other picture of the world, a completely other view on the world, and many of them are not open and pluralistic at all. They are very dogmatic, very religious, they don't care about women's rights, etc. So are you still for migration or are you against migration? We have a huge contradiction, a huge conflict now within one of these old political ideologies. And so these old ideologies, they try to defend themselves. And what are they doing, at least in Europe? I'm not sure how it is in your country. Please write down your comments. It's so important. In Europe, it leads to a problem that I call undemocratic defense of democracy. So in Germany, for example, the established parties, they try to exclude 1/3 of voters. They try to exclude the right-winged AfD and they tried to exclude the left-winged party by firewalls. They even tried to to forbid one of those biggest opposition parties because they say, no, they are undemocratic, so we have to forbid them. But is it really justified to exclude 1/3 of people from democratic processes just because their opinion is not something that the majority likes? And this leads to the fact that freedom of speech is in a deep crisis, at least in the German-speaking countries. 60% of Germans, they say in a study, no, I'm not able anymore to say what I think. So I think that freedom of speech is limited in Germany. Before Corona, this was just, let's say, something like 30%. And this is also something that the USA are saying against Germany. And maybe there is a point in that. Because originally, freedom of speech means you can say anything except of defamation, except of incitement of the people, except of unfair competition and, let's say, extreme sexual things, but anything else is covered by free speech. But now, for example, with the Digital Service Act of the European Union, this is extremely limited. Originally, it was introduced against hate speech, against fake news, but in the end, now many things that before have been freedom of speech, before have been, let's say, satire, they are not allowed anymore. And so it's not surprising that we have a strong counter movement for a couple of years. So cancel culture gets cancelled, or let's say cancel culture from the left side gets cancelled by cancel culture from the right side. Instead of wokeness, the new fashion is Mokeness, being proud of being an old and stubborn donkey. So in many democracies, it's the danger that we shift from democracies into a dictatorship of the majority. For example, if 51% of voters, they say, okay, everybody has to be vaccinated. Is this still democracy, or is this a dictatorship of the majority? If, for example, 51% of people say, okay, we have to exclude 30% of voters because we don't like their opinion, we think they are undemocratic, we have to build a firewall, is this still democracy, or is it dictatorship of the majority? If 51% of people think, okay, we have to send young people, they are just the people under 30 years old, in Germany they are just 30%, so we send them into war, they have to fight for our weal, they have to fight for our prosperity, and for that they get a little bit of money and they get a nice prosthesis. Is this still democracy, or is this dictatorship of the majority? Yeah, you see, such questions, they have not been relevant until 2019, but now they are here. Now they dominate our political discussions, and we don't have any clear answers for that, because even you who are watching this now, some of you will think, okay, 51% is the majority, so it's democratic that they can decide. And others of you will think it's just 51%. These 51%, they should never be able to dominate the other 49%. This is undemocratic. This is a dictatorship of the majority. So we see a couple of really grave and immense problems of modern democracies. They are so much in a crisis, and now they try to get out of the crisis by getting undemocratic against anything that challenges them. But this is not a solution. We have to find really future-oriented solutions that fit into the new spirit of the air age. So the state must return to serving the people and to serve the welfare of the people. The state has to become slimmer, has to become faster, have to become much, much more effective. And I mean, a slim state doesn't mean a weak state, it's the contrary. It means that modern states, modern democracies, they at least have to get into the reach of effectiveness of modern autocracies and of modern structocracies. So we have to use excessively the new tools of air technologies, especially in public administrations. They have to be consequently 100% digitalized and with the support of artificial intelligence. In Germany alone, 10% of people, of employed people, are working for the state. Of course, there are a couple of things that are definitely important, like working in schools, working in the health systems. But all those who work in public administrations, there are hundreds of thousands of people who are still doing all this manual work, who are checking formulas, who are typing formulas into their computers. And especially if we look at the whole tax system and the subvention systems, on the one hand, on the side of the states, there are hundreds of thousands of officers who are trying to get order into this huge tohu wabohu of thousands of laws and of regulations. And on the other side, on the side of economy, of private people, we have hundreds of thousands of consultants who earn lots of money to consult people how to optimize taxes, how to get subventions from the state. So it's calculated that alone in Germany, 50 billion of euros are lost only by those ineffective bureaucratic systems to our economy. Next, the education systems. How can it be that millions of school lessons, they are not taking place because teachers are ill or we have a lack of teachers, in the age of online seminars and in the age of learning apps? This is so incredible. Why have thousands of mediocre teachers of mathematics try to teach us, for example, percentual calculations, and still most of us haven't understood it, didn't get it, didn't understand it? When on the other hand, the very, very best teachers could teach it with one lesson to thousands of pupils via online seminars. So we see the working force of people could be used much, much more effectively now with these new air age technologies. They should be used to put people, to put humans, to put our personal development into focus and not into all these repetitive and very, very technical sides of education. Yeah, and then the shift from party democracy to issue democracy. I mean, we have all these modern tools of liquid democracies where we can make participation processes very easily, extremely effective, and very, very fast. Yeah, we just have to use them for our decisions. Like, for example, in Switzerland, it's already made for many, many decades. Yeah, so we see we have a couple of really grave problems with our modern democracies, but we also have the capabilities now with the air age technologies to solve these problems, to develop a new renovated form of democracy. So please write down your comments, please write down your thoughts on political systems, how it's in your country, what are the problems, what are also the good things there, what you think about the modern status of democracies. It's so important that we all are solving this together now on a global scale. So always the best stars to you, and thank you so much.